watching this Malina Angelica video. She's a YouTuber from Britain, has this very nice, soft British accent, very polished. Does great videos. But anyway, she was traveling from Austin, Texas to El Paso, so she goes to all these rural towns along the way. She goes to a Texas barbecue spot, a honky tonk, a ranch, and she does some natural. I think she goes with like a Native American guide and sees some petroglyphs and sacred Indian sites. She, I would say, she goes to these four sites and she experiences these. I think there's these four distinct cultures that kind of shaped the area. So you have the Native Americans. They were monotheists in the sense that there was a kind of great spirit. There's a pantheon, but then there's a great overarching spirit. Now, of course, in North America, you had hunter-gatherers. There were collapsed civilizations like the mountains civilizations. Then you had the great Mesoamerican civilizations, the Mayan, Aztec, many great civilized people. And the hunter-gatherers in North America previously were civilized, but they had a collapse, and at the time of European expansion were hunter-gatherers. So you have the Indians, and you have African American, and this is very evident in the barbecue, and the agricultural practices. I don't think there was slavery in Texas. I don't think you had the huge plantations like you might have seen in like Georgia and Virginia. These are huge aristocratic, from British aristocracy days, with these huge land aristocratic plantations in the South. You didn't have that, and certainly not rural Texas. You would have had like migration of sharecroppers, and they would have been largely Protestant in their religion. Kind of a hard driving, Baptist Protestantism. Then thirdly, you have the Latin. Now these were the conquistadors, the Spanish immigrants that settled in Mesoamerica, in the captured Aztec areas, and of course they bred to some degree with the indigenous people, just like the northern European immigrants in North America. But you have and that is Catholic. It's Catholic, and there's a strong vaquero culture, Spanish cowboy culture there. But it is this it's more of a Catholic feel. And lastly, but not least, you have the Scots-Irish. So these are the people from southern Scotland that immigrated to Ireland in the 1600s, 1700s, beginning of the 1700s, started moving to Appalachia, the mountainous areas, and then went west from there into places like this further west in the southwest, eventually to California, but definitely settled in places like Texas. And this is a fundamental, we think of white Protestant American. They were Presbyterian, but then largely became Baptist. Which so you do have an overlap with African Americans there. And a warrior culture. These are the majority of the American soldiers in the Revolutionary War, and all of the wars, all of America's big wars. the largest bulk of people serving have been Scots Irish. So these four groups, I would say, they're four distinct groups. They have different religious practices, different customs, but they've managed to, and this is a place with a lot of freedom. She goes and sees people, gun owners, Trump supporters, uh, these people who say that I will protect what's mine. We're not going to call 911 here. We're not living in a city, we are living in the country. We're going to protect what's ours. We're going to protect our rights. We're going to protect our values, traditional values. All four of these distinct groups, you have traditional values, and and there's a symmetry. I mean, even though they keep, you have these distinct cultures, there's huge amounts of overlap between them. Like, you can see it in the barbecue that really all of the cultures are represented in something like barbecue, the food and the agriculture and the legal practices. I mean, everything. It's an amalgamation, and there's certain groups that aren't represented. You have people like the people that immigrated to cities, tend to stay in cities, but then you go to somewhere like Texas and you see, wow, this is free, and they get taken in by it, and but then you have people in the cities right now who are more, I would say, authoritarian, and they're thinking, owning guns is bad, and we need to protect our environment. We shouldn't live, where we can walk everywhere. These people drive cars and they have guns. They're bad. They support Trump. They might even have Confederate flags, which, by the way, 99% of Confederate soldiers did not actually own slaves. Not that I'm saying I'm support the Confederacy or anything, but they should be proud of their heritage and their rebellious nature, rebelling for states' rights. Whatever you think about that issue, they fought and they died for protecting their liberty, and that is what this country is about, what it's founded on. The Constitution, the Bible, and the Constitution. That's what that is what America is founded on, and that's what these people, obviously, Native American cultures didn't originally have the Bible, but they the practices, even though it's distinct, I look at those cultures as someone who loves the Bible, and I say, yes, they are really in this. Just to wrap up that, you could say, well, none of those groups represent me. Well, there's all kinds of other people that are there, obviously. You could have a Chinese person that comes in and they see that these values are good and they adopt that way of life, and boom, you're in. You get land, you get yourself a gun, you protect it just like everybody else does. You respect property rights, you respect God. Maybe your definition of God is different, but you respect that there is something greater. I think that's really important. That it is monotheist. All of those cultures, it's a monotheist culture. So I think you respect God. You kind of have this overarching unitive vision of a higher power, whatever. Even though that might be that's going to be different among the cultural groups, obviously. You respect God. And you respect freedom. You even when you disagree with somebody, you're given the right. They have the right to speak. They have the right to do what they want on their property. I mean, as long as it's not violating some. Obviously, we have 10 Commandments. We have a moral code that we live by, and that is one thing too. Texas is very far from Washington D.C., so federal law. When you talk about what the Civil War was about, I mean, yes, obviously slavery, but, and I know it killed by a lot of people for saying this, but, the states' rights, these places that are far from Washington, D.C., and you might say, I'm going by the 10 Commandments and the Constitution. When I see that Washington, D.C., is obviously not going along with the Constitution, not going along with the Ten Commandments. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And you know, I think all those cultures, from Native Americans to the Scots Irish, you know, they all have, I would say the Ten Commandments apply to all. They all pretty much understand that, you know, and you have that basis, the first principles of the society, and that's how this libertarian society gets built up, and you stay spread out, you know, keep your. I'm trying to describe what this smells like. I think it just would say it smells like Mexico.